Well, what you see through the camera right now is pretty much indicative of how the remainder of this Singer 66 RedEye looked. Just absolutely coated in rust. Some of it pitted, some of it surface rust. Um, Everywhere from the raceway area, you can even see it kind of on the hinges. I haven't gotten to that yet. um, all over the presser foot area, the needle bar, the presser foot bar. Really been hacking away at that. I hate to say hacking, but that's pretty much it. Uh, but all in all, I think that it's got a lot of promise. It's got decals that are in very, very good shape. This is a machine that I am actually preparing for a gentleman out of California. And it's kind of hard to see the serial number there. The gentleman out of California is Joe Silva, and he's out of a city called Manteca, California. And Joe, kind of like my other customer out of Texas, is looking for a Singer 66 hand crank. So that's kind of what I'm going towards in getting this machine ready. It's going to be a hand crank. It's not going to be motorized. And right now I'm just trying to get the rust under control, and making sure that the inside of the machine is conditioned and treated as well, so that if there is any rust that's present, if there's any rust that might crop up, I'm going to stop it in its tracks and neutralize it before it becomes a problem. A lot of the rust is only superficial right now, but if you don't treat rust like this, whether it's off the clutch, off of the rear plate, whatever it is, it's just going to continue to persist. So what I'm going to do real quick is just show you a real simple tool that I have. It's kind of a Dremel tool, but it's kind of a poor man's version of a Dremel tool. And that, along with using kerosene to try to neutralize and clean up these pieces here without taking off the chrome plating. That's the problem when you're removing rust like this. If you go too deep, you actually remove the chrome plating, and then you've got dull spots, and it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to clean up chrome pieces if you don't also deal with the aspect of not going too deep with it at the same time. So you have to deal with the rust, but you can't remove that chrome plating. You're probably going to have to remove a little bit, but if you go too deep, you pretty much shot yourself in the foot. You've defeated the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. All right, so, and I do have a customer that is inbound to the workshop right now, so it's possible this premiere will be interrupted by this customer that is inbound driving into the workshop, is bringing a Husqvarna Viking. I believe it's a Type 21, but I'm not absolutely sure, and they just have some concerns about it. Going to be looking at a complete service, probably not a restorative process, other than dealing with some of the mechanical issues to get them back to where it needs to be. So let's take a swing at some of this rust and see if we can't clean up this rear plate, see if we can't clean up this clutch, and then we'll go around the machine real quick if we have time to try to address some of that as well. So I'm going to flip my screen around and see if I can just show you some real basic tips in trying to address superficial rust issues, and then we'll see if you can apply it in your setting wherever you are. And again, one of the that's just my phone going off. One of the solvents that I use for this application, at least, is a kerosene oil mix. It's pretty close to 50-50, probably about 60-40, a little bit heavier on the kerosene. I do like kerosene in applications like this because it has a natural cleaning agents in it. It also is a natural rust inhibitor, and it just does a super good job, in my opinion. Also, the faceplate is also, I don't know if you can see that, it's off camera a little bit. The faceplate is also faced with some of the same issues, and we're going to see if we can't resolve these issues to some extent. So I'm going to probably center the camera, let's see, probably right about there, and I've got a little bit of room to move around. So I think we'll go after the rear plate first, then we'll focus on the clutch, and then lastly we'll do the faceplate. And I don't know if if all of a sudden a loud noise comes on, it's my air compressor, and I'll just go over and flip it off. So this is again my my poor man's Dremel tool. It's simply labeled a variable speed rotary tool by Handiworks, and it's not a real high-end one, but it serves my purposes beautifully. All right, and I'll do this little piece last. This is just the little screw that holds it together. So you want to be careful when you're doing this to apply a light pressure. You don't want to apply too much pressure. And I usually go kind of in a circular motion. Again, I'm applying a real light pressure to this rear plate. And you don't want to stay in one spot too long, otherwise you're going to start cutting into that chrome finish. Again, like you may have seen in the recent premiere I did on the Singer factory in Scotland, the chroming is a layer that they apply to the metal, so it's only so thick. Alright, so I'm going to stop right about there. And I'm going to take one of my pads, and I've got to kind of look into the camera so I can see kind of what you're seeing. And here you can apply a lot of pressure using a cosmetic pad and a mix of, again, I'm using a mix of kerosene and regular machine oil, about a 60-40 split. So you can see already we're starting to get a real nice outcome with that particular plate. I'll kind of come in even closer to the camera, if the camera focuses, that is. So you can see all those little nooks and crannies, all those little grooves. We're going to have to work into that either using the solvent or using the rotary tool. But again, you have to be real careful because that chrome layer is only so thick. So right now we almost have it kind of looking like pewter, which isn't bad, but obviously we have some more work to do on this. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to the side, partly so I can let it dry off a little bit. You don't want to be using a rotary tool on a chrome piece when it's wet. It's not like wet sanding. I don't recommend wet sanding on a chrome piece. Other surfaces you can do that on because they're a lot thicker, but when it comes to a surface like this that has a limited amount of depth as far as that chrome, you have to be real careful. But again, you can see, probably see, is that camera going to focus? Sort of going to focus. Yeah, there we go. That's just with one swipe. We kind of buffed around a little bit after we used the rotary tool, and we got a lot of that junk off. So let's go on to our next piece. We're going to focus next on our clutch. And you can see the clutch has a lot of rust on it, a lot of pitting. And also on the outside as well, we've got that chrome finish that already is starting to really get hit hard by that rust. Especially here, it's awful. It's really, really bad. So let's first of all use our rotary tool. and we'll see if we can't take off the initial layers of it. Obviously on the inside of the clutch it's not as critical because that's not really a part of the machine that you're going to be seeing or others are going to be seeing. But you don't want to take all the chrome off, because the chrome also to some extent protects that finish and keeps it from either getting scratched, keeps it from rusting, keeps it from being exposed to the elements. It's kind of a protection. And here you also need to get in those grooves that screws into the end of the balance wheel, but you got to be real careful. I kind of go straight on, get those metal wire pieces into there, but again, don't go too hard and fast. Take a real light approach to it. And like I said, this is kind of a poor man's version of a Dremel. Dremels are wonderful, but they spin up to such a high RPM. They can also be real dangerous, especially if you're using them on pieces like this that are chromed. So if you have a Dremel and that's all you have, then use it, but use it cautiously, because some of those Dremels will spin up to 3,000 plus RPMs per minute. And that's going to be a real, you're going to have to be real careful using that on a piece like this. Okay, so let's stop there, and we'll do the same thing we did with the other piece. And we're going to be trying to swab that off now and just see what dent. The inside of this clutch was really bad, so I know we have a lot more work to do on this, but at least we're starting to make an impact in getting that rust off, and using the solvent that we're using, we're also neutralizing it so it's less likely to return. Well, you can see we've obviously made an impact, but we have a lot more work to do on this piece. And then we're going to flip it over and also work on the outside of this piece as well. Again, this is going to be a central focus point of the machine, so we're going to have to really handle that gently as we take the layers of rust off of this to try to get down to a layer of chrome without taking the chrome layer off. So we'll start in this one next using this rotary tool. And on this outer piece, I'd recommend, instead of coming kind of on the edge like this, where you have a tendency to dig more into it, you want to come straight on, and with a real light touch, you're going to want to just buff this off layer by layer, okay? Again, my touch right now is real light. I'm applying very little pressure against this finish, which, you know, it kind of becomes a game of patience. If you try going too fast and furious, you're going to end up going through that layer of chrome, and then you're going to have those dull spots on the end of this clutch, and you don't want that. All right, so let's go ahead and see where we're at. That's really the key thing, is you've got to have those stop points as you're taking these layers down, so that you make sure that you can see really what you have, because as you take those layers down, they're going to be caking on the top of here, and you're going to be going over an area really where you're probably almost all the way down to the chrome, and you're going to see that layer of stuff that's already been removed, and you're going to be digging deeper, and then you're going to dig too deep. And so the key is to be patient, kind of like we were on that last piece with the clutch. get those layers off, get down to where you can see what you're doing. Kind of like a doctor working on a patient. You always see in the movies, dramatically, the doctor will exclaim something like, more suction, I need to see, what I'm doing. And in some surgical sense, as we're working very carefully and surgically to remove those layers off that have probably been built up over many, many decades, we've got to be patient in that process so that we don't go too deep. So again, I'm going to take a swab and we'll start to take those upper layers off and just see kind of where we're at. And I know we've got a lot more work to do on this clutch because this clutch is really bad off. So there you can see we're starting to get some areas like through here where we're able to see at least the top layer of that chrome piece. The chrome piece that was applied at the factory. Again, we're looking at metal, and then we're looking at a layer of chrome that they basically press on here, and they use a process of pressure and heat to make it adhere to that other metal. But it's a process that is delicate enough. We have to really treat this as a delicate process. So progress is progress. We've gotten down several layers already. And I don't know if I mentioned already, I don't think I did in this premiere, what age machine we're looking at, but this machine is from the early 1900s. So we're looking at a machine that has been on the earth for almost a centennial period. And so we've got to be real patient as we're working through those layers, layer upon layer upon layer. It's kind of like those of us as we age and we gain weight. You don't gain weight overnight, not typically. It's, that extra donut, that extra bag of chips, that extra couple of sodas, or whatever it is, and layer after layer we put on pound after pound after pound. It's very subtle. And it's the same thing with gaining these layers of rust. They just build up over time. They might even look caramelized. The caramelized layer might even shroud that rust that is building up underneath the surface, and then all of a sudden the rust pushes through and you've got a problem. And you can see my hands. I think you can see my hands in the shot. It's not a real clean process doing this either. So now we're going to go to what I would say is probably the most delicate area to work on when you're dealing with rust, and that is the faceplate. And I'm going to come on this shot just a little bit. Go the right direction here. Because obviously we have a much longer surface to work with when we're dealing with a faceplate. And again, the same principle. Take it easy, take it slow, don't rush through this. Don't rush through this. And I'm even going to, because this is a real delicate piece, I'm even going to slow this rotary tool down a little bit more so that as I'm working through the layers, I don't get overly zealous and go too fast and too deep and damage this faceplate. Any of the other surfaces, you can have a little bit of forgiveness, but the faceplate, everyone, when they're looking at a vintage machine like this, Joe Silva included, I'm sure, is going to be looking at this faceplate, and it's going to be a major focal point, so we really got to be gentle with it. Again, I'm taking this very, very slow and very, very gently. And keep your, whether you're using a Dremel or a rotary tool like this, keep that tool moving. Keep it moving. Don't stay in one spot too long. If you hear that little grinding, that's when these brushes kind of skip off the edge and catch the edge of the faceplate, but it's nothing, we're not doing any damage. And this little thread guide right here on the faceplate, you have to kind of gently work around that as well, because that's also covered in rust too. And rust and thread are not friends of each other. Alright, so let's stop there, and we'll take a look and see how our progress is going. Again, the faceplate, we're going to have to take that process even slower because it's such a central focus point of this Singer 66 RedEye. Okay, so this is how our faceplate is starting to come together. You can kind of see that in the shot. We have a lot more work to go, a lot more combination of the rotary tool and also gently using a solvent and cosmetic pad. But we're beginning to see, again, evidence of that chrome starting to peek through. And again, because that chrome finish is so thin, we've got to be really, really careful as we're going through it. And you can see already, even in that short amount of time, we've made a lot of progress as far as evidenced on this cosmetic pad. All that stuff coming off, layers upon layers upon layers. And again, I think in the opening shot I showed you the serial number. It was really hard to see, but I can tell you that this machine serial number is G as in George 3479952, G as in George 3479952. And if you want to post in the chat, or if you want to go to Facebook and post in conjunction where this premiere announcement is, the year, make, and model of this machine, basically give me the whole birth date. How big was the production size when this machine was born, and then obviously any other particulars you want to share about the machine. But I think you'll be surprised when you look it up how old of a machine we're actually looking at here, because again, the decaling and such, all in all, is in very, very good shape. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of circle back to these other pieces again until my customer shows up, and I have to cut this live feed, and then we'll go ahead and you know, wrap up this premiere, because I know I'm not going to get this completely done unless my customer is really, really late, which I hope they aren't. And since we're getting down on that layer a little bit, I'll get a little bit closer. So we will go back to that rear plate now. And I'm going to prep a couple more pads so I've got them ready. Again, I'm working with a combination of kerosene and regular machine oil. Not any kind of a super fancy solvent. You got to be real careful with solvents if they're in the store on the shelf and they say, hey, you know, this will strip anything off, because again, stripping off things is the goal, but it can also cause damage if it's not gentle enough, especially when you're dealing with chrome pieces like this. Okay, so let's work some more on this rear plate. Got to kind of get my cord out of the way a little bit here. Where am I? There I am. I'll bring my light in as well, so we've got a little bit better light, hopefully. Again, my touch is very gentle. And we're doing this when the surface is dry. We don't want to have any dampness on there. Part of the reason we kind of we cleaned the pieces and waited. And I'm doing the edge as well right now to get that area cleaned up. Okay, we're going to stop right there. And again, as before, we're going to go ahead and swab this off just so we can get a clear picture of where we're at in the process. So you can see again, we've gone over it again. There's what we've gotten off of there. And again, we're starting to get more and more, especially in the high spots, we're starting to get more and more evidence of that chrome starting to come back. We may never get like a mirror shine unless we were to re-chrome this piece, which you can do. There are different applications that I can do in a workshop like this and basically give it a shiny finish again. But if we want to stay true to preserving as much as as we can of the original, then this is the best approach to do it. It's more time consuming, but it is what it is, right? It's worth the investment in my opinion. And you can see, again, we're getting a lot of progress in a fairly short amount of time. I mean, we've had these interludes, we've had these pauses, we've gone from piece to piece to piece, but all in all, our investment of time has been very, very small for the impact that we're already starting to bring to this rear plate of the machine. And we just continue the process. Now we're going to be moving back over to the clutch again and concentrating on working on the clutch. And then we go, if you get kind of bored or you get anxious as you're working on these attachment pieces, then go back to the machine and work very carefully, whether it's the stitch controller on this, as I already did a bunch of the work, or down near the presser foot area. You can also do that piece area as well, around the needle bar and the presser foot bar as well. And that way you kind of break things up a little bit, because if you stick with one thing too long, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to get anxious, you're going to go too deep, you're going to cut into the chrome, and then you're going to be going, oh, God bless America, and get frustrated. So don't do that, okay? So I'm going to go back to this clutch again. We'll do a little bit more work on this clutch, and then I'll probably wrap this Premier up. Because if I stick with you on this all the way until I get all the way through it, we're going to be here for probably close to 2 hours. And I don't think you are wanting to. I don't think you're wanting to stick here with me for 2 hours watching me use a rotary tool and watching me use cosmetic pads. If you are, then you're extremely loyal, and I'm grateful for that. And as you get lower and lower, closer to that chrome, it's it's easy to get a little bit anxious, even with me. So I've got to keep telling myself, be patient, be patient. It took decades for this to build up to this level, and we don't want to get anxious. And you may not be able to see in the camera, but when I hit different spots and I really start to break that rust free, we actually get like a little cloud that pops up. It's kind of cool. And again, try to keep that flat. If you start to turn it to the edge, it's going to cut through that much quicker, which, you know, you may say, well, that's what I want to get done with it, but it may cut too quick, so just be real careful. All right, so let's stop there. We'll go ahead and grab one of our cosmetic pads. And again, I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, my fingers, but you can just see that stuff is just coming off layer after layer, and it kind of sticks to your hands and your skin, which, no surprise, right? All right, so let me work over the surface of this clutch a little bit more, and then we can feel good about the progress that we're making. It's a slow, steady progress, but that's okay. That's okay. So you can see here in the camera, we're getting closer and closer to that chrome finish. A lot of those darker areas, we're obviously making a big impact. This is, I think, the second time that we've gone over it now, and we've gotten similar results as far as that cosmetic pad. So it's just slow and steady, slow and steady, slow and steady. You can see though, as I'm doing this, you're starting to see that reflection? We're starting to get really close to that chrome finish, which means we have to slow down the process even more and be even more cautious as we're getting down real close to that chrome finish. Because again, the chrome finish, as you may have seen in that premiere that I showed you of the Scotland factory where they were applying the chrome, it's super thin. It's super, super thin. So it's easy to burn through it either with a rotary tool or just scrubbing on it in one spot too long. So don't make that mistake. I've made that mistake before. I have. And it's galling because you're like, doggone it, I'm not supposed to make that mistake. I'm an experienced guy. But anyone can make the mistake. So if you make the mistake, even in spite of watching this premiere, don't be overly harsh on yourself. It can happen. I'm just going to loosen this a little bit and go a little bit more towards the machine. There we go. Okay, so we're going to do one more phase on this faceplate, and then we're going to wrap this premiere up. So we're already making some real good progress on this faceplate, I think, and we just have to take it slow and steady, and eventually we'll get to a point where that chrome will be a lot more evident. Again, it may never get its full luster back because rust does damage chrome. It dulls it, it kind of digs into it, and it takes away some of that natural beauty. But we're going to do our very best to restore as much of that beauty as we possibly can for Joe's Singer 66 RedEye. Okay? And we also have to remember to work on the back of this faceplate as well. You can see we've got actually rust on the back of it also that we have to also clean off in this process as well. So it's not just the front, not just the area that can be seen, it's the area that can't be seen as well that we have to make an impact on. All right, blah, 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 blah. All right, here we go. Again, a real light touch, folks, real light touch. All right, so let's stop right there. And let's just swab this off so we can get an accurate picture of where we're at in the process. Again, when you're swabbing it off with that cosmetic pad, you do not need to be gentle. You can dig into it pretty good with that cosmetic pad, get into all those little nooks and crannies, and just really make sure that you're getting all of that rust that you've removed with the rotary tool, so that it's not masking and kind of tricking you into thinking, oh, that area I still have to hit that with the rotary tool, and then all of a sudden you're down to the chrome, or you're through the chrome because you thought that there was still a lot of work to be done on that, but you had already knocked the majority of that stuff off. Okay, so now you can see we're really making some great progress now. I still have this area down here in the corner that I didn't do a real good job on, but look at that finish now. You know, and we haven't damaged the chrome because we've taken it slow and steady. We've gone at it as if it's a delicate material, which it is, and we've treated it with a great deal of caution, which you have to do. You're dealing with chrome pieces, you just have to really treat it with that delicate touch. And you can see this is our cosmetic pad that we just wiped it off with. Where's my camera? There it is. You can see all of that junk that was attached to that beautiful faceplate, and slow but steady, we're getting down. And the faceplate is extremely challenging because it's not a smooth surface like the clutch or like some of the other chrome pieces on the sewing machine. There's all kinds of little grooves and nooks and crannies in there, and we've got to get in there and get all of that junk off. And this is the sign that we're succeeding right here, right there. We want to continue to get that, and again, not be anxious in the process. So hopefully you found this kind of, quite honestly, I was working on Joe's machine on some of the mechanical challenges with it, and making a number of adjustments on it to try to get ready to put it to the test. And I thought, doggone it, I should show some of this process of getting rid of this rust and getting rid of some of this yucky stuff that you know, the folks that follow me and that have an interest in my work can kind of see, well, what do you do? How do you do it? And you can see we've already made some really good headway over here in the raceway area. Still have a lot more work to do on that, obviously. You can see that that's still pretty crudded up. But that presser foot, the presser foot bar, the needle bar, all of that, just like those surfaces that we just worked on together, it was just coated in rust, as was the stitch length controller right over here, and between the rotary tool, and again, really using exactly the same process. And you can see the evidence of the rotary tool by this right here. Here, I'll take one of my extra cosmetic pads. All of this was covered in the same rust that we have on those other pieces, and when you blast it off with that rotary tool, it all sticks to the paint. See that? So that's some of the progress that we've already made, and you can see, I think you can see, I can't see if I got to spin my screen around. Where is it? There we go. You can see just with that little swab, that's what we just got off right there. And that's all the rust and junk that we took off of that stitch length controller. That was on the inside, on the outside, on the the ribbed edges that are designed to give you a gripping point to adjust that stitch length. So again, it's not a quick process, but when you get done with it, it's worth the extra time that you've vested in it. And we have more work to do over here, obviously. You can see that that's got rust on it as well, the adjustment screw. Also the inside of the shaft that leads across the machine. We've got additional work to do on the outside and on the inside as well. So I'll be working on that to get all of that cleaned up. But again, all in all, as you look at Joe's machine, this is not going to be a full restoration. It's going to be a cleanup. It's going to be a mechanical tuning. And then I'll do the basic paint work as I've done on other machines that I've shown you recently in the premieres. And it's going to be a head turning machine. And the other great news is it's not going to need electricity like my rotary tool does right now. It's going to be a hand crank, and it's going to be able to be a machine that can go off the grid. Joe can take that machine pretty much anywhere he wants to take it, and he's going to be able to apply that hand crank in a way that he can get projects done, whether there's electricity available or not. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for kind of jumping into this premiere. Again, I didn't plan this premiere. It just kind of came together, and I thought I should show this. So hope you enjoyed it. God bless you guys, and watch for other great premieres like this. Take care.